Mandalay had not yet begun his duties as the mayor of New York when unexpected and very unpleasant events started happening in the city. Just like in Los Angeles and San Francisco in New York over the past 15 years, a whole army of thoughtless people has formed. They tried to resettle them, took them to shelters, to first aid stations, tried to remove them from the streets. They slept, ate, defecated, and, had intercourse in front of the astonished residents and visitors of the city. But the humanist Mandalay could not allow violence against the homeless, who were often mentally disturbed.
And therefore, the placement of homeless camps would be permitted under the administration of Mandania. The elected mayor declares that he will stop the policy introduced by Mayor Eric Adams to disperse these camps. Adams introduced this policy shortly after taking office, when homeless people began to be associated with crimes. As a result, the police were instructed to fine people for disturbing public order and to disperse the camps.
Connecting these New Yorkers with housing, whether it's social, rental, or any other type. If you don't provide homeless New Yorkers with the housing they so desperately need, you can't consider your actions successful.
Let no one be able to pass, but if a homeless person sets up a tent or puts a bundle in the middle of the street, you can't touch it, move it, or even more so, use force. You can't take him or his belongings away, drag them, carry them off, or move them.
Which also says that people will not be forcibly placed anywhere except in the rarest of cases.
Of course, nothing says leftist utopia quite like that. We will all live in a beautiful, futuristic communist city like the return of tents for the homeless.
The homeless are actually the ideal for the urban minds of the citizen and the voter. If the urban minds are communists, they don't want anything. I mean, not the urban minds. People often want things from you, but the homeless just want a sandwich. They'll vote for anyone and never rise up. Ideal.
The priority here isn't to clean up the city or restore order. No, it's to allow homelessness on the streets again, to give the sidewalks back to the country's homeless drug addicts. It's exactly the mindset that it's not a problem if people are smoking crack in the same place where kids are being picked up for school on their school bus. So, what a quick turnaround and how fast everything changed. So in the last election, the main issues in New York were crime and disorder. That's what all the polls said. We witnessed homelessness, the end of cash bail, random street and subway attacks by thugs, Aragua trends across New York, cartel and gang dominance, human trafficking and drug dealing, homelessness and despair prevailing throughout the city with a complete lack of order and control. It was a complete woke disaster on the streets, and then boom, like a flash. Apparently everyone, at least in Manhattan, just forgets. 2025 is coming, and here we go again. Let's choose. Zarana Mamdani?
Mamdani is already making life in the city similar to, well, third and fourth world cities. We're moving forward, but somehow we're backing up. The future mayor recorded a video course on how not to obey decrees and police orders, especially caring about criminals like thieves, murderers, and rapists, explaining to them how to avoid arrests and so on. Basically, how to avoid being imprisoned or deported from the country. God forbid. His slogan is, not a single criminal should be expelled from our city. No one should have to leave our city. I would put it this way, yes, a criminal. Criminals also have the right to happiness, to achieving the goals they've set for themselves.
Last weekend, Immigration and Customs Enforcement tried to conduct a raid on Street Canal and detain our migrants. As mayor, I will protect the rights of all New York City residents, including over 3 million immigrants. We can all resist Immigration and Customs Enforcement by knowing our rights. If you meet Immigration and Customs Enforcement, every New Yorker should remember. Immigration and Customs Enforcement can't enter private spaces like your home, school, or private work areas without a court order signed by a judge. If Immigration and Customs Enforcement does not have a court order signed by a judge, you have the right to say, I do not consent to entry, and the right to keep your door closed. Sometimes Immigration and Customs Enforcement will show you documents that look like these and say they have the right to arrest you. That's false. Immigration and Customs Enforcement can legally lie, but you still have the right to remain silent. If detained, keep asking, "Am I free to go?" until you get an answer. You can legally record Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Stay calm with Immigration and Customs Enforcement or police if not interfering with an arrest. Don't obstruct, resist, or run. New Yorkers have a constitutional right to protest, and as mayor, I will protect it.
New York will always welcome immigrants, and I will fight every day to protect, support, and honor our immigrant brothers and sisters. He will personally defend criminals of all kinds who find themselves in New York City. Tens of thousands of people live in New York who were brought here to work in underground workshops at very hazardous jobs where they quickly get sick and die. They are taught to steal, rob, and are forced into prostitution, especially the children among these slaves, namely an unusually high mortality rate. Well, that's expected. Yes, nobody cares about it. They are very cheap, and you can immediately get another one or order one, and they will bring it to you. Here they are, as well as those who own them, well, those who abuse them, beat them with their gangs, protect them so that, God forbid, they don't get arrested.
What do you like? At making Finentry Switch thing trending come envy more borderline. That's the most lonely. And pregnancy. We know exactly where these measures lead because the era of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter actively promoted this policy after Joe Biden's victory, which was achieved with a pen in 2021. And it was an absolute unmitigated disaster across the entire country. And after we were led down this disastrous path by an incompetent nobody named Joe Biden, you'd think people would have enough common sense to see all the damage done and adjust their political preferences accordingly. But no. They simply vote the same way in the second round.
And an interview with the state governor means someone higher than the mayor of New York State. Look at her facial expression and stiffness when answering, yes, body. Body language, as they say, yes, body language. She doesn't know how to answer very moderate questions, not even accusations from the liberal journalists, just questions.
But I go into my pharmacy and everything is locked up because of thieves. I don't take the subway. People don't feel safe in this city. Maybe you did something, but right now we feel uneasy.
We're afraid we'll become like San Francisco. We don't want to become San Francisco, please, Mamdan. Don't let us turn into San Francisco. Isn't that funny? I thought San Francisco was a liberal utopia, a shining beacon on a hill that the country should look up to. I believed democratic cities were the best and dismissed everything else as Republican conspiracy theories. Yeah, obviously they know. And they're begging Katie Hochul, please. We can't go back to that. It ruined us in 2024. Well, I guess they're out of luck because the beast they created is now, damn it, devouring them and that beast. In this case, it's the electorate of New York, which sent a very clear signal. Let's do it again, but twice as tough this time. This time, instead of communist hints, it's outright communist slogans. No more hidden communism. They're already in full swing. The Democrats created this beast and now it's facing them. You know, I feel like in 2025 your city will become a third world migrant hellhole. Well, that's just pretty hard to sell, but I guess that's the Democratic Party's problem to deal with. And oh god, Mamdani is already eager to jump into the fray.
I'm really glad that the idiots, the Starbucks workers, fell for Mamdani and Bernie Sanders' provocation and went on strike against one of the most socialist companies in America, Starbucks. On one hand, it's such a brilliant creation of capitalism, but they've become so corrupt that they stopped hiring, let's say, veterans of the American Armed Forces. And instead of them, and they wrote this themselves, they simply announced the hiring of homosexuals, lesbians, and illegals. Well, go on yourself. You know the list perfectly well. And these are the lessons of fate. and homosexuals, not to use another word, lesbians, illegals. And here they are, these very people made the decision. They decided to demand a salary increase, which will probably raise the price of coffee by $1, maybe by 20%, and possibly lower sales and profits of this very corporation that hired them, instead of the guys who served in the American military. The strikers, I think the average intelligence quotient of these strikers is about 30 to 40, and they have no idea about one little thing that I'm very happy to tell you about right now. In South Korea right now, Starbucks is testing robots that will do the job of these jerks better and cheaper. And if Starbucks is forced to pay their baristas more, and a barista is what you call the person who makes coffee, then they'll quickly start replacing them with a silent and cheap worker called a robot.
Just like for many workers all over the city, these are not greedy demands. These are demands for decent treatment. These are workers who are simply asking to be treated with the respect they deserve.
So they just want respect and everything else. We've already shown you that there may be, and I have no doubt that there are places where workers are exploited, not paid enough, not given benefits, and so on. But Starbucks isn't one of those. Yet you're clearly attacking it just because it's a successful, profitable corporation. You know, I actually like Starbucks coffee. I like it darker. I know for some people it's a bit bitter, but I usually prefer stronger coffee. So the average barista there makes about $33,000, but mostly it's a side job. Usually it's the management. But the point is, Starbucks represents capitalism. Funny thing, I watched this video yesterday. Last night we tried to remember the show, and today while watching They're There, we want justice, and of course they need money and so on. And I said, Joseph, find me a video where a robot makes coffee. I'm certain it exists since all these people will be replaced soon. We found one, and it's a Starbucks in South Korea. And they only need 2 people to operate so they can prepare and deliver drinks and everything else. So, idiots, we've been talking about this for years. You keep demanding artificially high wages, pay people $1.25 an hour, and what happens then? Will Burger King replace them with iPads? They're losing jobs so rapidly that we're nearly at the point where robots and artificial intelligence will replace many people. And you guys are trying to speed this up, and the reason you want to accelerate this destruction is because you want to use it as proof that capitalism doesn't work, even though that's not true at all.
Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani was handing out hot chocolate, once again reaffirming his promise to freeze rent. This is an important promise for this part of the city, where thousands of apartments have stabilized rent. In Stuytown, after the hot chocolate, Mamdani held a press conference addressing current issues, including whether Mayor Eric Adams will block his rent freeze promise by appointing his people to the Rent Guidelines Board. Before leaving, were you able to convince him not to take such actions that would interfere with your housing program?
We didn't have that conversation, but I still trust we can keep our promise. To freeze rent for more than 2 million tenants with regulated rent.
To freeze rent in 2 million apartments. I will do it, I promise. In 5 years, all these buildings will be covered in trash, covered in graffiti. The flowers and plants around the buildings will disappear. The light bulbs outside and inside will be gone, and the doors will be broken down. Drugs will be openly sold on the streets. And underage Latinos who are being brought in across the border will be offered for anything, including beatings and murders. How do I know? I lived in such a neighborhood in the lower part of Manhattan. I wandered around New York for 2 years before Giuliani, and it was like a jungle. There's the so-called Hell's Kitchen. Well, in Russian, it's probably called Adskaya Kuchnya, Hell's Kitchen, a small neighborhood in central Manhattan, New York. It was a neighborhood, yeah, it was an area where no police officer would set foot, where gangs ruled, where pimps set the tone and weapons and drugs were sold, well, pretty much in every grocery store. I know for sure because at night after the restaurant where I worked as a waiter closed, I would walk about 40 blocks. Well, I could have taken something there, grabbed a taxi, but I just had to walk. So to speak, all that wine vapor and cigarettes, which people smoked in incredible amounts back then, especially in restaurants, Russian, Georgian, etc. And so I was walking through the streets of Manhattan about, as I said, 40 blocks. Yeah, nobody was hiding anything at all. Nobody was hiding anything. I mean, really, as I was walking there. You know, hey, smoke, smoke. No, do you need something? Do you need a weapon? Do you need a girl? Do you need this? Yeah, guys, I don't need anything. Thanks. I'm tired and just got off work, so let me go.
Moving on to the recent protests against immigration raids, the reaction of the New York police to them, and the claim that the police department is not fully complying with sanctuary city laws. Mamdani says there should be no cooperation between the New York police and immigration and customs enforcement, and that protests, according to him, are an absolute right in the city. Mamdani says that the New York police should find the right balance. I think
the task of the New York police is to maintain order, not to help immigration agents. It should protect New Yorkers. Also, Mamdani is an anti-Semite, but you can't say that out loud. You can't. Everyone knows it, but the Jews voted for him, and it will take time for them to realize that they chose Adolf Aloisovich. Like, they invited, so here's a cat to sit with their, mouse kids, a cat.
Mamdani also addressed reports that the brother of Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch called Mamdani an enemy of the Jewish people. At a charity event,
the commissioner apologized to my team for those remarks, and I look forward to serving as mayor for all New Yorkers, including Jewish residents.
A charming, smiling skunk in sheep's clothing.
Right now, a lot of people are packing their things, ready to flee New York as quickly as possible. A recent JL Partners poll published in the Daily Mail showed that nearly 800,000 New Yorkers are ready to leave the city. And of course, New York has a population of only 8.5 million people, so that's a significant number of people ready to pack up and leave as a result of Mamdani coming to power. The same poll shows that another 25% of residents would consider leaving. And I understand, if you look at Mamdani's position on the police, well, he has previously called for defunding the police, and he has said a lot of terrible things about police officers. Another part of Mamdani's strategy, of course, is going on TikTok and promising a rent freeze, which we'll come back to in a minute. But James, about how many people are ready to flee New York? What are the consequences here? What are the consequences?
But the thing is, you won't see 800,000 New Yorkers fleeing right away, but that number is almost irrelevant. What really matters? New York's tax base is very progressive. And if just a small number of those billionaires at the very top of the economic ladder start saying, oh no, we're going to Connecticut, New Jersey, Florida, or Texas, or somewhere else. I saw a news report that many financial companies are considering Texas as a possible place to move their headquarters. Well, these people pay taxes, right? In America, it works like this. There are federal, state, and city income taxes. This creates a very competitive tax environment. The United States isn't like Australia, a high-tax country with poor services. So where else? How? I can tell you exactly what will happen because I've seen it under previous administrations. David Dinkins in the 90s, de Blasio, a decade ago. The place is falling apart, garbage is piling up, the police are struggling, crime is rising, taxes are going up. It's not the best place to live, and people who have a choice, they leave, and entrepreneurs take their businesses, their best employees, and all of them are taxpayers. So the tax base shrinks. And then suddenly, you end up in a situation like New York in the 1970s when it basically went bankrupt and had to be bailed out because, it was so badly managed. That's the direction New York is heading again.
They say only fools make the same mistake twice, so who makes it 3 times? How much of a idiot, fool, or lunatic do you have to be to choose as an administrator of a huge, well, actually, it doesn't even have to be huge, city, state, or country. It doesn't matter. A communist, no matter what he calls himself, even if he calls himself an angel of God, but when he tells you what he's going to do, it's clear that he's actually a Marxist, Maoist, Stalinist communist. You reap what you sow. That's the right way to put it, and I really hope that something good will grow out of this bad, at least for 10, 15 years, a lasting aversion to those who promise free handouts, especially when they want to take away some crazy things in return. Yeah, well, I want to believe. But I'm afraid it won't even work out. Because as soon as the next generation comes, envy and lust, these are two inseparable components of a person whom we quite undeservedly call Homo sapiens, that is, a rational human being. And we're just apes who can stand on two legs, but otherwise are no different from macaques and orangutans. That's all, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, and don't forget to subscribe. Knock on. I wanted to say drum, but it's better to say bell. Here's the bell. Please write what you think about all these topics and what other subjects might interest or concern you. Because sometimes you just sit and think about what interesting thing to talk about, and you wonder if it will be interesting for you. And if I have any information on this topic, maybe I'll share it with you. Goodbye.